Fahrenheit. When you woke up this morning, did you purposely say, I'm going to confine myself to a box? Or do you just avoid putting any conscious thought into today? When you're busy going at it, literally or figuratively, do you ever find yourself pausing for a moment to realize what's going on? Or are you just reacting? When you hear the saying, may I have your attention please, do you continue as you were, or do you consider the information you're about to receive might actually be valuable? When I was growing up, my mother used to ask me to do things, and sometimes her reasoning was, because I said so. Looking back, I wish perhaps I took the time to pause, think, and consider the ramifications of my choices. Good Thursday to you. Today is Thursday, October 27th, 2016. This is episode number 34 of Pause, Think, Consider. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. For those of you who have not had the opportunity to go listen to Monday's episode number 31, talked about 25 pounds of excuses. I would love for you to go back and listen to it if you haven't had a chance. And if you enjoyed it, please go onto our Facebook page and leave a comment to let us know what you thought of it. It's personally, to date, my favorite episode we've had so far. A lot of people will ask if there's one episode in particular. I was just going to go listen to one to get a flavor of what Pause, Think, Consider actually is. Which one would you suggest? And I would suggest number 31. So if you're looking to introduce or suggest to a friend or family member of a new podcast they might potentially enjoy, I would make the suggestion of episode number 31. Today's topic is about the long-lost art of phone calls. For more information on this topic, you can go to pausethinkconsider.com/phone call. I bring up phone calls today because of some recent events. Some recent personal struggles and things that I've noticed. Personally, I love what technology has done for communication, what it has provided us, the opportunities that we have as a result of it. The ability to quite literally connect with any and everyone. There's some individuals that are tougher than others, but for the most part, we can connect with anyone in the world. It used to be that time zones mattered, or sending letters or packages was the only way that we could deliver anything. But modern conveniences have allowed us to reach anyone. And as technology has developed, the security or personalization of that connection has decreased. Getting a phone call or receiving a handwritten letter compared to a tweet or somebody commenting on your Instagram post or trying to connect with you on Facebook. If we're going to weigh them, if we're going to rate them, give a value to them in terms of what's more important, what's more valuable, people that are in my phone, that have my phone number, at the top of the list. Next comes email. Then after that, any sort of social media, written letter, that's going to be high up there too. But my phone and phone calls that I receive are the most important. And I bring this up because of some recent struggles that I've noticed within my circle with the form of emails and written communications. It almost feels like there has to be a protocol. I know setting expectations and standards is important from the get-go. But I'm often surprised at how emotion can be lost and how words and thoughts can be completely miscalculated or misinterpreted. I did a little bit of a social experiment this past week. Because as I said, I've noticed in my circle a recent struggle with emails. And I've had other events in which email communication has brought on severe ramifications, severe drama. I'm almost to the point, and I keep saying that I'm going to get to there, and yet I try and divert back to email just because it's so quick, it's so easy, it's so accessible, and it really takes minimal effort. A text message is even less, but the desire to make the communication even shorter brings out even less emotion in it. Sure, you can do an emoji-con, but when I get a message back and it's the poop symbol, what is that really telling you? What is that communicating to you? Of course, anything if it was in person, face-to-face, is going to be much different. But we're trying to take it away from that. Let's assume you don't have that ability and you have to try and communicate. Because of all of these conveniences, that's why I bring up the topic of the long lost art of the phone call. Because it is the last thing any of us want to do. We would much rather send a text or an email than to pick up the phone and call somebody. I'm guilty as well. I think the question that I pose, though, is what are we losing out on? Because everything has a pro and everything has a con to it. It's a give and take. Are the benefits that we receive from the time that we're essentially saving or the convenience that we're gaining, is that worth the lack of personalization? Or in some cases, a lack of ability to effectively communicate? And that is where my vote for phone calls over any of those other forms of communication is what we need to ensure we don't lose. we've had this back and forth struggle. It's been ongoing throughout the entire summer. Some people trying to be serious, some people trying to be funny, others getting angry, others trying not to participate. And yet, as email correspondence have continued, they've just exacerbated the situation to the point that we've all collectively said we are terrible at emails, to the point that we may even abolish our ability to email each other. Essentially, if we need to communicate, we need to either meet in person or call each other. And so I did a little bit of an experiment where I had something very easily I could have either texted or emailed and received the answer that I needed. But instead, and I had to do this for 4 different individuals. Now, granted, they became a lengthier conversation with each individual, anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes, because as everybody knows that listens to this program, brevity is not my strong suit. But yet, from all of those, every single one of those conversations that I had, the purpose of it was to understand where the other individual is coming from and then to give my perspective. Every single one of those individuals said, and mind you, all of these things had already been communicated via email at some point, maybe not in the current string, maybe it was a prior string, but it had all been communicated at some point. Every single individual at one point said, "Oh wow, that's good to know, I didn't know that." And yet, we won't pick up the damn phone. And talked about this earlier about why how we all suck at communication, the art of communication. And so this is a specific challenge with relation to other forms of communication, every other form of communication but a phone call. And I would argue that we need to get back to basics. We need to get back to making communication more personal. In the world of email marketing, which I work in not quite on a daily basis, but very frequently, or just advertising in general, it's all about finding ways to connect with your audience. And how can you make it more personal? There's the ever creepy cookie tracking. As a result of that, which is why my mother frequently clears her cookies, is because then with that information we can personalize everything. So why do we strip out all the personalization in how we communicate? Why do we put up barriers? Is it simply that convenience? that you know if you get me on the phone, I'm not going to shut the hell up for 20 minutes. Which then argues that, well, if that is the only way that we can communicate, and it's for that length, why can't you communicate that to me? Tell me, hey, got to be a quick call. My mother does that. My parents do that all the time. Hey, we're about to have dinner. Give me the Reader's Digest version. Make it quick. All right, here it is. All right, we'll call you back later. Or here's our opinion. To be effective communicators, we need to have the courage and be willing to actually share our perspectives and our opinions. So I pose a challenge. I'm going to pose a challenge to the listenership at least once a week. At least once a week. When you have something to communicate, and it's going to come across strange initially, maybe even a little bit of pushback of, you could have just texted that to me, or why didn't you just send an email? But at least once a week, find something, some sort of communication that you are about to send or would send. And instead of doing whatever format you were going to do, assuming it's possible, call that individual. Pick up the phone and call them. I've got a good buddy of mine who, if he actually listens to this, will know, because we always tease, he's in sales. He's in sales. He does the text message thing, but I love to write novels. I'm going to put every single piece of information you need. My text messages are almost books. They might as well be a damn email. If there's anything of that length, or if we have more than one back and forth, phone call. Immediately. Hey, dude. Figure instead of going back and forth on the text machine, I just call you. You know what? That back and forth, even though we might be on the phone for a few minutes longer, because we're actually catching up, seeing how each other's families are doing, what's new. It is so much more effective, so much more efficient. So I'm posing the challenge. Find a piece of communication. One time you're going to communicate, just one time out of a whole week. Do it more if you'd like. Encourage you. Find a way to call somebody instead of using another form of communication. And then reflect and see. Take note of the pros and the cons. It's probably going to take you more time. It's going to seem silly. But then analyze, was it more efficient? Was it more effective? Okay, I got the same answer that I was going to get via text, but maybe I was able to have another conversation. Ask how their day was. Maybe strike up a new business agreement. Get somebody as a babysitter for the kids for the weekend that you didn't already have planned. Finding ways to leverage the phone instead of another form of communication is going to increase that personalization, and I believe increase your success rate of being understood instead of being misunderstood. So in recap, we've talked about the long lost art of phone calls, how modern conveniences have distilled our communication down into 140 characters or less. We are much more likely to send a text, Snapchat somebody, tweet them, any other form of communication, rather than picking up the phone and just calling someone. It's finding that balance. Because really having something in person would be the best. But finding that balance. So we pose a challenge because of the story we gave with how email and the message being lost. And while it took more time, overall, the message was delivered. And even new information that had already previously been communicated was now identified as a result of that phone call. And so we posed a challenge to find one time, at a minimum. You can do more if you'd like. I'd encourage it. But at a minimum, one time, you find something that you are going to communicate via a text, via an email, a Snapchat. Instead, pick up the phone and call them. If it's a celebrity, not going to happen. But somebody that you actually have their phone number and you're choosing to text them instead. Do what my buddy does, the sales guy. Pick up the phone. I'd love to hear your feedback. For more information and to leave your feedback, please go to pausethinkconsider.com/phone call. I look forward to talking to you all again tomorrow on Pause, Think, Consider.